Hey guys.
What's up? Ooh, what's
Ah,
that? Got a big baby in the background now.
Trying to sell this baby Bjorn rocker.
oh
Thought I'd
man.
move a
That why,
few.
is that
Thought
why
I'd
it's
move a
in
little
frame?
product on the pod. You know what I mean?
Amazing. Well, we
That
know
Yeah.
looks like
we
a good
often
one.
have listeners who are shopping for Baby Bjorn. So today's episode is going to be brought to you by AdamandEve.com and
And
Baby Bjorn
Tykes are us.
Incorporated. Yeah, exactly.
Have you guys used it's called I think it's called Offer Up. It's like an app. Offer Up.
No, but I've
It's
heard
like
of it.
it's an app where you just sell your crap. Like it's the new Craigslist for your phone, essentially.
Oh, interesting.
Cool.
I'm just clearing out garage stuff, and I've been hawking a few things. It's been
It
good.
feels like Craigslist has been just itching to die for years.
Yeah, it
Like
does,
it's
doesn't
such a
it?
terrible. It has a terrible reputation. It's horribly designed. You can't trust literally anything there anymore. But
Yeah.
somehow it persists. I don't
Somehow
understand
it's
why.
there. I don't know. Like literally, it's synonymous with Craigslist killer. And it's synonymous
Craigslist
with a
killer.
murderer.
If you put anything on Craigslist, it's like 75% of the things that you get in response are like bots and like complete
Murder.
con jobs. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
It's really
You're
strange.
so right.
Dude, and people
I think
still,
only
I mean,
four
even,
people work there, and they
That's
all
very
make
possible.
like $275,000 a year, and they're all like, "We shouldn't change a thing." They're like,
Don't
"We
change a
don't
thing.
we don't do anything. Let's not change anything. We're all like making good money,
Yeah.
and so why stop a good thing?"
Right.
However, the flip side is that Wikipedia kind of does the same shit, right?
Right.
Wikipedia's got this like autonomous, just this functional website that
Yeah.
seems like it just runs on fucking space fuel, but
God.
it is a masterpiece, you know?
Yeah. That is pretty wild. And it's like synonymous with WikiLeaks, but at least WikiLeaks isn't like murder, you know?
Well, but WikiLeaks is its own site though, because there's wiki things. There's all these different wikis, but then
Yeah, what is a
Wikipedia-
wiki?
A wiki
What is a wiki?
It's good. It's a good start.
Hey, hey, what is a wiki? And other
A wiki,
questions. Answer
a wiki
today.
is I don't know the formal definition, but you know,
We're not going to look it up.
It's a place. I mean, it's just a site where it's an archive of information.
Oh, wow.
So-
Yeah. A wiki is a collaborative tool that allows students to contribute and modify one or more pages of course-related materials.
There you go. See?
That's why we've got fun. We've got like a wiki for the show Lost. We've got a wiki
Exactly.
for, that really awesome Son of Sam documentary on Netflix. Like there's a wiki for everything.
Is that good? Is it a good documentary?
No, actually, it's
Oh, okay.
really not.
I feel like we're kind of running out of horror documentaries, right?
We're
I mean, are we
running out
kinda
of
getting to the
serial
bottom of the
killers.
barrel?
Son of Sam? Like,
Have you watched that on Netflix?
I tried, but you know what? And maybe I sound ignorant here, but I never thought Son of Sam was that
Scary.
interesting or scary. Yeah.
Because he was just like a New York Italian guy from Hell's Kitchen. He was like, "Hey, I killed a few people." You're like, "It's not scary." He's like eating a hoagie, and he's like I
Eating
tried
a
to get in
hoagie.
there.
He was New York, right?
Mm-hmm. And he was the one that was like, I did it because my neighbor's dog Sam told me to do it.
Oh, that's right.
And it's like, okay, buddy, like,
and then
no,
he
you
became
didn't.
a born again Christian in prison, right? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for everything I
Boo.
did.
Boo. Boring.
If you weren't born a Christian, you don't get to be born again a Christian. Sorry.
That's what I'm saying. Christian
Those are the
elitist
rules.
podcast. Anyway,
I
I will say the Gacy documentary is pretty compelling. I thought that one's interesting because it opens up at the very end. It opens up a whole new world of things that could have potentially happened with the Gacy universe, right? Because it essentially proposes a weird Epstein thing where, like, the very end, the last like 2 episodes. Actually, wait, I guess I'm about to spoil it. I don't want to.
Spoiler alert.
Hey.
Spoiler alert on a documentary.
It's happened, okay?
It's already happened. But they kind of reveal that that he was kind of potentially part of a like pedophile ring. It wasn't just like him functioning as like this lone lone insane clown. It was like kind of the Epstein universe type thing.
Which
So funny you
Which
bring
is-
that up. I was just looking up the word cabal yesterday
Okay.
for something,
it's a great
and
word.
it sounds like he was part of a cabal, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
part of
With
a cabal.
Dean Coral, who is another horrifying pedophile.
Exactly.
Cool
But
name,
Dean,
though.
people are
Dean
like
Coral
Dean
feels
Coral
like
may have been the main one. You know.
Yeah. And I've heard that like not obviously confirmed or anything, but that some of the there's been speculation that some of like the boys that John Wayne Gacy worked with that were a little older might have helped him with some of the victims.
Dean
But-
Coral's crew did that.
I think it was Dean.
Well-
and then Dean got killed, right? Dean got killed.
One of his fuck boys killed him. Yeah,
Is that true?
yeah.
I love that.
Wow. The
They-
more you know.
The more you know.
Well, he would they would like groom these kind of older teenage boys to go get younger teenage boys.
Mhm.
And like the older teenage boys would get, weed and beer and some like kickbacks. And Dean Coral would get all the killing and all the hardcore raping. But so there was essentially like middlemen. There was Ghislaine Maxwell's, if you will,
Oh.
of the operation. And one of those guys ended up killing Dean Coral one day because he had
like
had
it.
enough.
Which is like
it.
great, dude. Really happy for you. But he's still
After
like
you killed like 30
killed a bunch of guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
like he still lured a
He
bunch of
still-
kids there.
Killed a bunch of guys. You know.
So I mean,
Don't
but
forget.
the guy's argument was always like some 18-year-old, 19-year-old roll up to a bunch of kids who were like 12 or 13 and be like, hey, you kids like want to drink some light beer and smoke some doobs? And the kids would be like,
You guys want to have a
hell yeah.
pornography party? Which was
Yes.
yeah, let's go to this old
Yeah.
shack in a bad part of town.
Right.
And that's what you did before iPads, basically. So.
Right. Before iPads, you would go to this
iPad.
fat contractor's house, go to his fucking den that reeked of stale beer, and have a
Yeah.
pornography party.
And
Sounds
the iPads
Great.
changed the game. for
thank
Cabal
God,
forever.
right?
Thank you, Steve Jobs and Wozniak, dude. Thank you,
I'm
guys.
just saying. I've always been
Saving
saying that.
teen
Anyway,
boys.
this is Did You Reddit, a weekly podcast about the internet by way of Reddit, the front page of the internet. My name is It's Your Dad.
I'm spooky boobs today.
Ooh.
My free day in the studio.
This is
Selling
the Did You Reddit
product.
cabal, if you will. Anybody
It
who's
is.
listening to this right now is part of a cabal, officially part of a cabal. Maybe
I like
that's what we
that.
call our
I
pod
like that.
pals now. Instead of pod pals,
Yeah.
we call them
The cabal.
the cabal, the BYR cabal. Anyway, so today we're gonna have this is a fun episode. I mean, they're all fun episodes, but this one we don't have a guest today, like we didn't last week either. And today, I think we've decided. I don't know why spooky is in the air. It's fucking May. The sun is coming out. Spring is ending. Summer's beginning. But it's kind of spooky season in my mind right now. So we're covering. I think it could be Israel Palestine.
Maybe that's the
Maybe that's what's doing
spookiness.
it. But something is happening. So we're just going to do some creepypastas, and I think the way we're going to do this. So the reason we're going to do creepypastas, we've never done them. We've never talked about them, which is insane because I think they're they fall into that camp of like the most important parts of the internet. We've talked around them. I think anytime we ever talked about like Slenderman, anything like that. Slenderman is a
Hey, my name's Al
creepypasta.
Slenderman. I
Al
sell
Slenderman.
shoelaces down at the 5 and Dime.
God damn Al Slenderman.
Al Slenderman. But Slenderman is a creepypasta, but I don't know how. Were you just like revisiting these dog boobs? Is that how we got on this
Yeah.
topic?
You know what it was? It was Freed. You sent us a funny, like a video from something, but like underneath it was like other videos this guy did, and he went into one of the creepypastas that we'll talk about today.
I sent
But-
you guys a video of the Rampart scandal, and it was it had to do with the Tupac being murdered by LAPD, and it was like this whole conspiracy that linked back to Grand Theft Auto.
Yes.
And the
Wait,
main
link back to
cop
the
and the
Grand Theft Auto, not the franchise. Grand Theft
The
Auto.
franchise.
the
Wait,
video
what?
game.
The video game.
The main cop in Grand Theft Auto was based on this dirty cop in real life in LAPD who was like a bad guy in the 90s, and he was like the leader of a cabal, if you will,
Huh.
the Rampart scandal, and he theoretically was like part of the hit crew that killed Tupac. or no, Biggie, excuse me. And like it was the craziest video. Of course, it was from YouTube, but I was like, oh fuck, man, it goes all the way to the top and the bottom.
Shit, and the bottom and the sides even. And so underneath it was like other videos this guy's done, and he goes into a couple of these fun creepypastas that I think the ones that aren't obviously fake, the ones that maybe people feel are still like, oh wow, yeah, I heard about that. Did that really happen? So he kind of does some sensational videos about that. Maybe we'll post a couple of those on our subreddit, but that's kind of what got me into these. And I started to read them. And then I was kind of reminded of how fucking hilarious creepypastas are. Even the scary ones are just absurd. And they're little treasures. They're treasures.
They are little treasures. They're little parts of like old internet in a way. They kind of feel like internet museum material.
Yeah.
It's always fun. You know what I mean? Like I think like Slender Man now, it's like we think of Slender Man as kind of like this quaint part of the like pre-TikTok internet. And you know, I think that as I was going through creepypastas, because for some reason this was never really on my radar. Like it's kind of totally on brand for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I just like didn't go down this route for some reason in my like internet tour. But I've been going through them, and I've been kind of like, as I'm looking at them, I'm like, oh, there's I remember this one, and I kind of actually want to start this whole thing off, specifically, on this iceberg meme I saw of creepypastas. I sent you guys this, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I thought this was interesting because this allows for us to talk a little bit about the subreddit. And also, this is kind of about the classics, because this is the other thing we've been talking about when we've been talking about the creepypastas leading up to this episode. Is, you know, we've done a lot of conspiracy episodes now. We're going to continue doing more conspiracy episodes because they're fun and there's always new shit happening. Right. There's always
Big Pharma's always fucking around.
Big Pharma's always fucking around, dude. Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, they're always caballing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Always something to cabal, right?
Caballers.
Ballers, if you will. But I think creepypasta is similar, where you know it's not quite as active as conspiracy, because conspiracy is like the internet right now.
Yes.
Right? But I think creepypastas there's the classics, and then there's always new things that kind of come up as like a creepypasta revisited. And also I would say that like maybe creepypastas are not as popular as they used to be because the world is so fucking creepypasta.
Yeah.
And so you don't really need the like fictitious story to drive things anymore, because there's like everything is sitting. It's almost like conspiracy feels like it's the new creepypasta, because you have these like, you know, Pizzagate kind of things, which in a way almost feel like a creepypasta, but were couched in like a
political thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think the thing that's fun about creepypastas too is it harkens back to an earlier time in the internet when you'd find a scary story on the internet and there wasn't a way to verify if it was real or not yet.
Totally.
So you'd be in a chat room, you'd be on a message board, and you'd see, and like the term pasta for people who are listening, it's a delicious dish from various countries. But they're delicious. But it's also like a term for just like when people copy and paste something. I think that's where it comes from, like pasta, copy pasta and whatnot. So like these stories would show up.
Old school internet. That's like OG internet.
Or it'd be like a funny comment that you just see everywhere, and by the time you get to the end, you're like, God damn it, I've seen this a million times. So these stories I feel like are kind of like from that era of internet where maybe we were like 13, digging around on Reddit, found a horrifying story, and either 13-year-old us thought it was scary, or if you look further down the iceberg, maybe us today thought it was scary. But yeah, that's what's so fun about these. It is kind of like a historical look back into like things that freaked us out before we were all like worldly enough, thanks to the internet, to know it was bullshit.
You know what freaks us out now? Late taxes, you know, interest rates, real scary stuff.
Your dad asking you if your 401k is set up.
So it says harken back to a simpler time, if you will.
Do we feel do we feel, because I always think so the idea of urban legends, right? Where, because this is just such an interesting world, because I think with like creepypastas it's like these fake urban legends, but obviously Slenderman, we all know the story that Slenderman became, right? Which
Yes.
was, starting as this kind of creepypasta. And by the way, also it's worth mentioning, because I was looking over at I was researching some of the Squidward's last episode, or Squidward's lost episode earlier, because I was like, oh, I do remember this one, but I was like, I couldn't really remember the details, so I was like looking it up, and then I was like, oh, it's really just a video, and then I was like, well, is it, if it's not text, is it a creepypasta? And it all
Mhm.
kind of, the idea of it being a pasta is essentially a viral experience that that catches it catches kind of like a zeitgeist of like a character or a thing, right? Because like the copy pasta, yes, it is copy and paste shit, but it's also like
Mhm.
Slenderman started as a a image, a lone
Yeah.
static image, and then became the story of Slenderman. And I think that kind of like is a little bit of the like Bloody Mary, like, say it in the mirror 3 times shit, right? Where it isn't
Totally.
cut and paste, you know what I mean? It's just like something that's passed down. So these
Yeah.
are, I mean, at the end of the day, these are internet urban legends, I
Yeah,
guess.
man. This is
Um,
like, how like ancient tribes would tell stories and they would be passed on from generation. This is our generation's
right.
fucking important stories.
Right. So I think we're going to read some of them, or read the initial ones. I know that Squidward's lost episode is a little less of a like read it. There's a reading portion of it, but I'm gonna actually go through a little bit of the like know your meme. I know that Sonic.exe and Jeff the Killer is a classic one, of course.
Jeff the Killer.
Jeff the Killer.
Yeah.
And then the Russian sleep experiment, which I know that was dog boobs. That was like your like that introduced you to the internet.
That kept you out of many a high school dance.
Oh, yeah.
You said, no, not tonight. I'm staying home.
I'm staying home.
But all of that, though, all that said, is like we're going to read a couple of the ones that we can. Then I think we're going to talk about a couple of the other classics, right? So for anybody who's just listening right now, we are looking at an image of we've all seen the meme format of an iceberg, where above the iceberg you have like some basic ass shit, below the iceberg, and the further you go down below the iceberg, it gets increasingly obscure and increasingly abstract. And so the idea being at the very, very, very bottom, it's only the heads know,
Oh,
right?
shit.
And so the top of the iceberg, I'm just going to actually list the names of the actual creepypastas, because I think some of these are going to ring a bell, and I think that if you have an opinion on this one way or another, you should actually email us or hit us up on Instagram, DM, or on Reddit about whether or not you think this is correctly stated. We have nothing to do with this iceberg meme, but this is, I think, a good metric for the way they're perceived, right? So top of the iceberg, Ben Drowned. Do you guys know Ben Drowned?
I was like doing research yesterday and I did see Ben Drowned, and it's the haunted Majora's Mask, right?
I don't know. I don't know Ben Drowned. Maybe it's because my name is Ben and I was trying to avoid it at all costs.
You probably were. I think it's someone playing Majora's Mask and like some weird shit happens in it. It's like yeah, there's Ben Drowned.
We'll do some research. Sonic.exe, which we're gonna read. Eyeless Jack. I don't know Eyeless Jack.
I don't either.
Jeff the Killer. Jeff the Killer, I almost feel it's hard not to say that Slenderman is the most famous, because Slenderman like reached Kathy Hoda level because some kids actually killed in the name of Slenderman, or tried to kill their best friend in the name of Slenderman, some like teenage girls.
Right.
So, but Slenderman is very much up there, and then like I said, Jeff the Killer. The Shallows, Booth World Industries. So Booth World Industries is a number you would call, right?
Okay.
Which is I don't know enough about it, but I was looking at it and I was like, oh, interesting. And then I kind of tried to figure it out. The SCP Foundation.
Mm.
The Sane Russian Clown Posse.
Yeah, the ICP Foundation.
We're actually pretty boring, and we
not cool.
Keep it responsible.
The Russian sleep experiment. So the Russian sleep experiment is one tier down. That one is slightly below the surface.
Slightly.
Rule type creepypasta. Don't know what that is.
Now we're in the depths.
Now we're in the depths. The evil stick. I don't know what that is.
Hmm.
Squidward's lost episode. Which, do you guys know that one?
We'll
go
don't.
into that one. That one's pretty interesting, actually.
Squidward from
SpongeBob. They paid me. Was that
Squidward from SpongeBob?
Yeah, Squidward from SpongeBob.
Damn.
They paid me $5,000 to go through hell. Don't know that one. And all of these, now we're in the world of like, I barely knew any of the top ones. I definitely don't know any of these. So
yeah.
Now one level lower, the Yule Man. I clicked a spam pop up as a kid, in quote. Something is on the moon. The smiley face killings. Ritual pastas. And then, what is this? The
Dyatlov Pass incident.
Dyatlov Pass incident.
You guys, that one's awesome.
Actually, I think I do know Dyatlov Pass.
That's really happened.
Yeah. Well, hold on, though. That's where we get into some strange territory with this creepypasta thing. Because, like, we go, that really happened, but then people are just like, it's a creepypasta, though, right?
Yeah.
Because by this logic, if you're going to say it that way, you could very easily, like, there's a bunch of versions of this, right?
Yeah, because Squidward technically probably has a lost episode.
Exactly. And then the very, very, very bottom is the predator on the moors, missing 411, the body on the reservoir. I don't advise Googling. So this is actually something that
I will Google right now.
Exactly. It's like there's a link below this.
It basically is like clickable.
Yeah, it is clickable, but evidently it's quite gory. And then I found a flash drive full of cryptocurrency is the very, very, very bottom, right?
This is a great little graphic because it basically gives you a reading list. It's like how far down you want to go.
We'll put this on our sub for anybody who is just listening right now. And it seems like everybody, like even the enthusiasts, are like, I know them all except for the very, very bottom.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. There we go. I'm not gonna. Oh God, I want to click it so bad.
Oh, which one? I don't want to click the reservoir.
Yeah, I saw something about the reservoir. Immediately Google that.
I did look that up this morning over coffee.
Okay, how was it?
Yeah, it was disgusting, but
you've seen enough.
You know what it is? It's like, have you guys heard of like the alien cattle killings? Mutilations where it's like they have like their buttholes cored out and like their organs are removed.
Are awesome.
They're wild, and like that happened to this guy in South America.
Oh shit!
They found his body.
His brain was cored out.
And I'll just say there is a picture of his butthole cored out on Google. And I was just sipping my Nespresso like,
I didn't know you were allowed putting photos of buttholes on the internet. I thought that they didn't allow that.
You can't if they're cored out.
Yeah, you can't if they're cored out because technically you're not seeing the actual butthole then.
That's right. Butthole.com. Mm-hmm. Good segue into our sponsor today, Adam and Eve.
Do you want to get your butthole cored out? Go to Adam and Eve for an extra large butt dildo.
Exactly. But we'll get to Adam and Eve because they are our sponsor and we love them and we're sex positive. All right, so creepypasta. So the subreddit. So getting back out. So the subreddit is still quite active. So this is it's been in the community for 11 years. So this is kind of like an OG, probably, I don't want to, maybe not one of the first ones, but I think this just goes to show how long creepypastas have actually been a thing, you know?
Yeah.
And just going back to the original internet thing, because what I love about the idea of creepypastas as well is that there are so many versions of these that are not internet adjacent, right?
Yeah.
So the Bermuda Triangle, right? Like Bermuda Triangle, dude, like how often did we hear about the Bermuda Triangle as kids? And you were just like, I'm never going to fucking go. And then there's adults who were just like, isn't that just like Jamaica? And
didn't we just like fly through the Caribbean? Yeah. Shit.
Yeah. Didn't we literally vacation there like last week?
For spring break?
Nothing happened? Right. So there's like the Bermuda Triangle. I think that like the Hail Mary or like the Bloody Mary thing, I think that's a really good version of it. I mean, even down to like something like quicksand, right? Like quicksand has this like creepypasta energy. which I think is kind of why you diversify the term a little bit. So it's not just like,
Mhm.
oh, it's a copy and pasted story. I think it's actually like a copy and pasted idea that
Yeah.
transcends just the format by which it was originally made, right? Because even like don't
Right.
take candy from strangers, right? Like don't
Yeah.
take candy from strangers, or like the like check your candy at Halloween to make sure it doesn't have nails in it or fiberglass,
No,
all that bullshit
no, that
is just
actually
like,
happened to me. I got an apple with a bunch of razor blades jammed in them. But that
Shit,
was like
man.
another one. That one and like popcorn with like some kind of a gasoline acid.
What a
Right.
power move to, in front of all the kids, hold up the apple filled with razor blades and just be like,
power.
And then red rum was like a big one, or like staring into a mirror and saying red rum
course.
was like when I was a kid,
yes.
that was like, you know, the big creepypasta.
Yeah. So all of
Again-
those, I
again,
think, all
stuff-
coexist in this world, and I think that that's what I think is interesting, knowing that there's a specifically digital version, internet version of this that is not like, it still has like relics of that, but it's a little, you know, and this is what you find on the creepypasta subreddit. Actually, it's a little less like about just these old stories. You still have those sometimes, and some of it is actually like fan art of the original stories, and like things are just like broadly creepy that like maybe people are
Like a
trying
creepy
to turn into
picture.
yeah, totally. And so, but you know, I feel like the original idea is almost it's so big that it can't be contained
Yeah.
within a single subreddit now. Because I do think that like the like conspiracy subreddits, all those things are in a way creepypastas, because they are sharing these strange things that are like rumored to be right.
Yeah.
So like the P tapes are a good one, right? Like the Trump P tapes, be like, somebody's got the tape. Who's gonna share those tapes? Like that is forever going to be kind of a copy pasta / creepypasta idea.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I love the idea of calling it a creepypasta because it's creepy when you think about it.
Totally.
Who's involved. Maybe
Well,
if there were younger, cuter people involved, it wouldn't be creepypasta G on Pornhub, you know?
Sure. But what constitutes a creepypasta, right? I mean, this is the big question, is because like, you know, I would argue that like something like Jeff the Killer is clearly a scary thing. Slenderman has a bit of like the supernatural thing, and if that's the supernatural thing, then like isn't technically Bigfoot a creepypasta in a way?
Yeah,
Right?
that's a great point.
So-
Creepypastas are kind of like they're ideas that kind of capture the imagination of everybody. Kind of like if you think of like why the ones that in that iceberg meme got so well known, or not as well known, but still made it into the iceberg meme. It's like there's something about what's written in those creepypastas that just like gets at one of our deepest, darkest fears. Either as a kid, like a little kid, like Sonic EXE is like, when you read it as an adult, it's hilarious. And there are things called troll pastas, which are like, they're meant to be stupid, and like that's its own thing and pretty funny. But then you get further down and it's like, I don't know, the doll love pass thing. It just captures different groups of people's imaginations in like a really sinister, morbid way. And that's just like it reminds me of that book that we all like read when we were little kids with the super scary illustrations.
Totally.
They're like ghost stories.
Dark stories, scary stories, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Scary stories to read in the dark.
It seems like this is like it's like a very universal human nature thing, right? Like being afraid of the boogeyman, essentially. And the more we're talking about it, it's just like, you know, what we're talking about is telling stories that are designed to tell you, watch out for X thing that could hurt you.
Yeah.
And that probably was like a panther or a lion or some kind of a monster, literally a monster lurking in the woods, that when we were like cavemen would come out and bite you, like literally eat your head.
Yeah.
And so these are stories you would tell your kids so they would not go down to the river and like have an alligator eat them and kill them. And so then that has evolved into this, I mean, essentially. And so we have this like mechanism in our lizard brain that's always sensitive to hearing these kinds of tales for our protection. So it still freaks us out. So it's just a universal great thing. And we don't hang out at the river as much anymore. So we still need to fill that void. So we tell these stories to each other just to freak us the fuck out.
Just to make us feel alive.
So we've been creepypastas since 250,000 years.
Right, exactly. Well, should we dig into one of these fuckers?
Let's fucking go, baby. Let's read. Let's start with the Sonic EXE. That's actually.
I'm just gonna warn you guys, dude. I've never been scared in my life, so bring it on.
Oh shit!
Oh,
okay.
It's funny because it's.
I'm a little scared.
A really quick side note before we get into this, as if everything we say is not a quick side note, but so there is something interesting about being an adult and like the things that scare you. Like, how do you convey that in a creepypasta? Because I feel like the things that scare me now are just basic news. You know what I mean? Like, it's just something like, oh, a new strain has erupted in the India for the coronavirus.
Yeah,
oh, that's a fucking creepypasta. You telling me? Like,
right?
Oh man, like, oh, Israel Palestine has flared up, and now people are talking like it could be a global war based entirely on the idea that Bibi Netanyahu doesn't want to lose power. That's a creepypasta.
And it's like, what do you mean a white-faced killer with bright red lips doesn't scare you anymore?
No. And I also, like, I was at Six Flags on Friday, which was so sick. And I
also scary.
Also scary. But it was one of those things where I as a kid, your imagination is such a crusher. You know what I mean? And so I was getting on these rides. And I remember as a kid, the like doom drop rides, I was just like, fuck no, that scares the shit out of me. And
like this Superman, where it'd just be like,
well, it's not Superman, it's the Lex Luthor one where you just go up for like 3 minutes and then it drops you for just immediately. And and it's like it's like an outrageously tall. It's like 420 feet or something like that.
Oh my God.
It's so high, you drop 85 miles an hour straight down. It's very scary, right?
Jesus.
And when I was a kid, I was like, I would literally have a panic attack getting on it. I like could not hold my shit together.
Yeah.
And I rode it like 3 times, and I was just like, and I was getting nostalgic of my own fear.
You're like, it doesn't scare me anymore the way
it was a really interesting thing. It like felt like it was literally nostalgic for fear.
Yeah.
And that was such an interesting feeling because of what we're talking about like the older you get, you read these things and you're just like, oh, what a quaint time to have such an active imagination that this thing would scare me. Right. And maybe
now we're all like, oh, a power line like snapping and ripping our legs off on that ride is like not the worst thing that could happen to us in today's day and age.
Yeah. You're like, do I get tweaks off of work for that? Do I get workers' comp?
Exactly.
Awesome, I get a sick payout. I'd be able to be bedridden for at least 6 months. Will be
dope. The drugs I'd be on.
Right.
I mean,
but it's like it's such a strange thing though. It's just like it feels I kind of.
Do you sit around thinking about terrorist attacks at those places? That's kind of like a fun way to freak yourself out. Like,
when you're not scared at Six Flags anymore. Imagine the Taliban coming in. And
I was in Istanbul at like one of those markets some years ago, and I was like,
the Grand Bazaar.
I think I was at the Grand Bazaar. I was on my annual spice gathering trip. At the Grand Bazaar.
Where you bring your little leather satchels with you and just grab as many spices.
And I come home and I cook and it's magical. I was buying rugs and spices and those shoes with the little twirls at the end.
Cool, man. Very cool.
It was very chill. But you're kind of sitting around going like, this feels like a bomb could just definitely go off. Like there's so many people around. Like,
right.
And you the more you start thinking about it, like it makes you anxious and a little bit scared. But like you probably had that same feeling when you were buying spices at Six Flags. By spices, I mean fun dips and American
that's
spices.
Actually so funny. I have a similarly exotic experience that happened at medieval times in Burbank in Anaheim a few years ago.
Been there, and I've wanted to go for my entire life. So
it's fun as a kid, and then when you go,
my birthday's coming up. We should go. Let's go.
Let's go.
I'm fucking down. Live.
I will go.
Medieval times.
Cool. cool.
We can bring our own forks and knives for the food. Okay, so we're sitting there after the event where you go in, you eat your food, and you watch these like actors like pretend to be medieval knights. Exactly. And then you come out of the big, horse smelling chamber, and they have the actors who are playing like the Blue Knight, the Yellow Knight. They're all like waiting in separate corners of the lobby, like so that you can run up to them and take pictures with like whichever one was your favorite, which was just like sad in its own way. But I was standing there, and it was for a birthday party, so we were kind of standing in line to get with that red knight. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this like very strange looking Columbine-esque kid who's wearing like a trench coat, sunglasses indoors. He's like on the edge of the crowd, and my friend and I are just like, this is not, he's gonna whip out a gun. Like, I just have this really bad feeling right now. Like, what the fuck? And we're just watching, and I'm like, it's that thing you struggle with yourself. Like, at what point do I raise my hand to security and be like, I've got a bad feeling about that guy for no reason, except to look at him.
You don't want to be a Karen. You don't want to be labeled a Karen.
Exactly. And then suddenly his girlfriend comes to join him. And the minute I saw he had a girlfriend, I was like, no motive. He's okay.
Not an incel. He's good.
It's so interesting you bring that up. There are like these little things that will let like
context clues.
Context clues, exactly. Like you see like somebody walking on the street, you're like, that guy looks a little shady. And then like you see them hold a ring of keys with like a Volvo key on it. You're like, it's chill. He's got a Volvo. This guy's not a threat. Not a threat.
Thank God. Yeah. He's got a Volvo, guys.
You see a guy wearing a trench coat in the corner, and then he opens it up and you see these selling watches, and you're just like, he's just a watch salesman.
Cool.
He's just selling watches.
The guy you just described, Dog Boobs, is how my cousin dresses. He's like 18. He just went to college. He looks like that kid now.
Oh,
and I see him, and he's like, I think he's like smoking weed, and he's like kind of quiet and awkward, and he's like tall, and he wears these like weird 80s trench coats because cool. And I'm like, cool. Yeah, man, like you're doing it, but you also look like a Columbine killer.
Yeah,
like,
it's
just
like
FYI.
Coolest kid at Arizona State.
But he's like the nicest guy.
It's so interesting. Because we also like another version, and I swear to God, we're going to talk these stories and we're going to get to it. But hold on. Another version of this though is also, it is like the incel manifesto, the like Elliot Rodger manifesto, the manifesto from the New Zealand shooter. It's like these real world things that happened that then they're like evident. It's like ISIS beheading videos, right? It's like that shit is another version of creepypastas that I think it's interesting because if I were to put the Elliot Rodger incel manifesto in the abyss on this creepypasta, someone would probably be like, that's real. You can't put that here, right?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, wait, but hold on, because that shit is scary and I've never seen it. And I don't know if anybody fucking has it because the FBI probably scrubbed it from the internet, right?
True.
But that feels like a version of this. And even the idea of the Columbine shooters is like, we just described them through the lens of this very specific caricature, which is not that different from Slenderman. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about like a killer clown, and we kind of talk about this, whatever, this like very specific, that's all based on the John Wayne Gacy idea, right?
Yes.
And so like the Columbine shooter, for you to be like, oh, I saw a guy in a trench coat with like some Neo glasses and wearing a Marilyn Manson shirt, like that itself creates this creepypasta world. And this is also like the Columbine shooters have this weird sex appeal allure for kids now. I've noted. I mean, not entirely, but there's a subculture of Columbine enthusiasts.
Yes.
And it's like it's not necessarily a like sick, twisted, I want to kill people thing. I think it is inspired by the same logic of creepypastas, right? Where people go, this feels more mythical than real, even though it was real, because it's been turned into a brand of sinister versus, like this is what's so compelling, or not compelling, but this is what's so weird about the fucking Las Vegas shooter, man, is because he's such a fucking nobody that had no distinct details that you can't really turn him into a mythology.
Yeah.
Because he was just a guy. You
It
know
was
what I mean?
bad branding on his part, really.
Very
Really?
bad branding. But that's very different than the Columbine shooter where you go, or like Elliot Rodger, the incel shooters, you go like the brand of that thing turns it into a like, quote unquote creepypasta, not in the traditional internet way, but like in the way that creepypastas function, where like Slenderman, if Slenderman was just a guy, right? It wouldn't be Slenderman. It would just be
Yeah.
a guy. And Slenderman didn't do anything. It was just like this rumored thing, but because it was a tall, kind of white suited thing, people go, "Oh, that shit is scary."
That's
But
not right.
a fucking normal guy who looks like an investment banker who can just like Patrick Bateman take somebody out and like kill a kid, you can't do anything with that. So
Right.
the story
Yeah.
doesn't
Go
transcend.
anywhere then.
Yeah.
Let's read a goddamn story, dude. I want to get
Let's
freaked.
read a story.
Let's
All right,
do
let's get
it.
into it.
So
Want to
should
start
we
with
start
Sonic?
with Sonic or Russian prison experiment or sleep
It's
experiment?
up to you. You're the queen of the pasta. You are
Okay, you
the
guys.
pasta chef. Dog.
Let's start with Russian sleep experiment because I think we should start with something legit scary.
Yeah.
All
I love
right.
it.
So
We'll be the judge of that.
Yeah, you guys be the
Does it have
judge
to
of
do with tax evasion?
that. You be the judge of that.
Okay.
No, it doesn't.
right.
Okay, so the Russian sleep experiment.
Can you flip it to me so I can put it on screen for anybody
hell
who's going to
yes.
be watching this?
One sec. Share my effing screen.
There we go. Good pod. Ooh,
great pod.
Crush and pineapple.
Oh
this
shit!
This is a good one.
This is intense.
Spooky. All right.
Okay, guys. Russian sleep experiment. Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept people.
This is true, right? This actually happened, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
Like I'll research it on the side while you're doing this.
Yeah, please do, because I feel like probably it's based in some reality, but who knows? Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using an experimental gas-based stimulant. Meth, anybody? They were kept in a sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake so that the gas didn't kill them since it was toxic in high concentrations. This was before closed-circuit cameras, so they only had microphones and 5-inch thick glass, porthole-sized windows into the chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books, cots to sleep on, but no bedding, running water and toilet, and enough dried food to last all 5 for over a month. The test subjects were political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained, having been promised falsely that they would be freed if they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic incidents in their past, and the general tone of their conversations took on a darker aspect after the 4-day mark. After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they were, and started to demonstrate severe paranoia. They stopped talking to each other and began alternately whispering to the microphones and one-way mirrored portholes. Oddly, they all seemed to think they could win the trust of the experimenters by turning over their comrades, the other subjects in captivity with them. At first, the researchers suspected this was an effect of the gas itself. ... After 9 days, the first of them started screaming. He ran the length of the chamber, repeatedly yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 hours straight. He continued attempting to scream, but was only able to produce occasional squeaks. The researchers postulated that he had physically torn his vocal cords. The most surprising thing about this behavior is how the other captives reacted to it, or rather didn't react to it. They continued whispering to the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. The 2 non-screaming captives took the books apart, smeared page after page with their own feces, and calmly pasted them over the glass portholes. The screaming promptly stopped. So did the whispering to the microphones. After 3 more days passed, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure they were still working, since they thought it was impossible that no sound could be coming with 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a very heavy level of strenuous exercise. On the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something that they said they would not do to get a reaction from the captives. They used the intercom inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from the captives they were afraid either were dead or just vegetables at this point. They announced, "We're opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor or you'll be shot. Compliance will earn one of you your immediate freedom." To their surprise, they heard a single phrase in a calm voice respond, "We no longer want to be freed." Debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding the research. Unable to provoke any more response using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day.
Bad idea.
Bad idea. Midnight. Do it at 8 a.m. You know?
Yeah, do it
at noon, man. Come on.
Yeah, do it at noon. What are you doing? The chamber was flushed of the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air, and immediately voices from the microphones began to object. 3 different voices began begging, as if pleading for the life of loved ones, to turn the gas back on. The chamber was opened, and soldiers sent in to retrieve the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state that any of them were in life. The food rations past day 5 had not so much as been touched. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subjects' thighs and chest stuffed into the drain in the center of the chamber, blocking the drain and allowing 4 inches of water to accumulate on the floor. Precisely how much of the water on the floor was actually blood was never determined. All 4 surviving test subjects, surviving in quotes, also had large portions of muscle and skin torn away from their bodies. The destruction of flesh and exposed bone on their fingertips indicated that the wounds were inflicted by hand, not with teeth, as the researchers initially thought. Closer examination of the position and angles of the wounds indicated that most, if not all of them, were self-inflicted. Here we go. The abdominal organs below the rib cage of all 4 test subjects, sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 5, all 4 test subjects had been removed. While the heart, lungs, and diaphragm remained in place, the skin and most of the muscles attached to the ribs had been ripped off, exposing the lungs through the rib cage. All the blood vessels and organs remained intact. They had just been taken out and laid on the floor, fanning out around the eviscerated.
Blood vessels and organs. So are they okay? This is talking about one person that they completely.
I think they're talking about literally 4.
All of them?
4 out of the 5? Or 4, because it seems to change. All of the blood vessels and organs, so I'm picturing literally body works, just like nobody can live through that. The digestive tract of all 4 could be seen working, digesting food. It quickly became apparent that what they were digesting was their own flesh that they had ripped off and eaten over the course of days. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but still, many refused to return to the chamber to remove the test subjects. They continued to scream to be left in the chamber and alternately begged and demanded that the gas be turned on lest they fall asleep. To everyone's surprise, the test subjects put up a fierce fight in the process of being removed from the chamber. One of the Russian soldiers died from having his throat ripped out. Another was gravely injured by having his testicles ripped off, and an artery in his leg severed by one of the subject's teeth. Tough day. Another 5 of the soldiers lost their lives if you count the ones that committed suicide in the weeks following the incident. In the struggle, one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured, and he bled out almost immediately. The medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this proved impossible. He was injected with more than 10 times the human dose of morphine derivative and still fought like a cornered animal, breaking the ribs and arm of one doctor. When heart was seen to beat for a full 2 minutes after he'd bled out to the point where there was more air in his vascular system than blood, even after it stopped, he continued to scream and flail for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone in reach and just repeating the word "more" over and over, weaker and weaker, until he finally fell silent. The surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility, the 2 with intact vocal cords continuously begging for the gas, demanding to be kept awake. The most injured of the 3 was taken to the only surgical operating room that the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative they'd given him to prepare him for surgery. He fought furiously against his restraints when the anesthetic gas was brought out to put him under. He managed to tear most of the way through a 4-inch wide leather strap on one wrist, even though the weight of a 200-pound soldier holding that wrist as well. That doesn't make sense. It took only a little more anesthetic than normal to put him under, and the instant his eyelids fluttered and closed, his heart stopped. In the autopsy, the test subject that died on the operating table, it was found that his blood had tripled the normal level of oxygen. His muscles that were still attached to his skeleton were badly torn, and he had broken 9 bones in the struggle not to be subdued. Most of them were from the force his own muscles had exerted on them. The second survivor had been the first of the group of 5 to start screaming. His vocal cords destroyed and unable to beg or object to surgery, and he only reacted by shaking his head violently in disapproval when the anesthetic gas was brought near him. He shook his head yes when someone suggested reluctantly that they try the surgery without anesthetic, and he didn't react for the entire 6-hour procedure of replacing his abdominal organs and attempting to cover them with what remained of his skin. The surgeon presiding stated repeatedly that it should be medically impossible for the patient to still be alive. One terrified nurse assisting the surgery stated that she had seen the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times whenever his eyes met her. When the surgery ended, the subject looked at the surgeon and began to wheeze loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming this must be something of drastic importance, the surgeon had a pen and pad fetched so the patient could write his message. It was simple. Keep cutting.
Oh, boy.
The other 2 test subjects were given the same surgery, both without anesthetic as well, although they had to be injected with a paralytic for the duration of the operation. The surgeon found it impossible to perform the operation while the patients laughed continuously. Once paralyzed, the subjects could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The paralytic cleared their system in an abnormally short period of time, and they were soon trying to escape their bonds. The moment they could speak, they were again asking for the stimulant gas. The research asked why they'd injured themselves, why they'd ripped out their own guts, and why they wanted to be given the gas. The only response given, I must remain awake. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're almost there, guys. All 3 subjects' restraints were reinforced, and they were placed back into the chamber awaiting determination as to what could be done with them. The researchers, facing the wrath of their military benefactors for having failed the stated goals of their project, considered euthanizing the surviving subjects. The commanding officer, an ex-KGB, instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were put back on the gas. The researchers strongly objected, but were overruled. In preparation for being sealed in the chamber again, the subjects were connected to an EEG monitor and had their restraints padded for long-term confinement. To everyone's surprise, all 3 stopped struggling the moment it was let slip that they were going back on the gas. It was obvious that at this point, all 3 were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects that could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs against the leather bonds with all his might, first left, then right, then left again for something to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off his pillow and blinking rapidly. Having been the first to be wired for EEG, most of the researchers were monitoring his brainwaves in surprise. They were normal most of the times, but sometimes flatlined inexplicably. It looked as if he were repeatedly suffering brain death before returning to normal. As they focused on paper scrolling out of the brainwave monitor, only one nurse saw his eyes slip shut at the same moment his head hit the pillow. His brainwaves immediately changed to that of a deep sleep, then flatlined for the last time as his heart simultaneously stopped. The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. His brainwaves showed the same flat lines as the one who had just died from falling asleep. The commander gave the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside, as well as 3 researchers. Why? One of the named 3 immediately drew his gun and shot the commander point blank between the eyes, then turned the gun on the mute subject and blew his brains out as well. He pointed the gun at the remaining subject. See, this doesn't make sense. There's an extra person. He pointed the gun at the remaining subject, still restrained to a bed, as the remaining members of the medical and research team fled the room. I won't be locked in here with these things. Not with you, he screamed at the man strapped to the table. What are you? He demanded. I must know. That's a Russian soldier, by the way.
It's a Russian accent, too.
Yeah, it is. The subject smiled. Have you forgotten so easily? The subject asked. We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We're what you hide from in your beds every night. We're what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread. The researcher paused, then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. The EEG flatlined as the subject weakly choked out. So nearly free.
Starring Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins.
Damn. So here's my thoughts on this, right? So that's a creepy story.
Mm-hmm.
But
I've got some thoughts too.
Here's what's interesting is like hearing it again, because I have heard that before and I've definitely seen the images, right? So like this is a very famous, like again, talking about like internet-y things. Like this is where did it go? I lost it. But there we go. This is the image that you see, right? When you search this. Like this one is like the classic creepypasta image.
That's real.
And it is real. And so, but what's really interesting about this is like, there are unnecessary details that make it feel like it falls into the horror trope.
Yes.
Right. Which is kind of cool because then it just feels like a horror film.
Yeah.
Or a horror story. But the flip side though is, with taking out those details like at midnight, right? Like the dialogue. We don't need the dialogue.
We don't need the dialogue.
Like, all that kind of shit we don't fucking need. But the thing that makes it really scary and what's actually really convincing about it is that we know the Nazis did fucked up experiments on people.
Yes.
Right?
Had access to meth gas.
Exactly.
Did sleep deprivation experiment.
Not just the Nazis, the Americans, the Russians. And so I think that what is brilliant about this is swapping out.
No, man, the Canadians did not.
Canadians never did anything.
They would never do that.
That's the scariest story of them all.
You're pulling in these details of how this shit actually happened. And so I was reading a little bit about like the reception of it. Mm-hmm. So the Russian sleep experiment became immensely popular upon its original publication. It's considered one of the greatest and most shared creepypastas. We already know that. So where did it go? So yes, so literary criticism. So in the chapter horror memes and digital culture.
Ooh.
Sounds fucking sick, by the way. I'm gonna read that book.
Yes.
In the Palgrave Handbook of Contemporary Gothic, Tasha R. Taylor wrote that the creepypasta reflects residual political anxieties as it purports to reveal a top secret effort by Russian scientists in World War II. Right? So what this is, which is true, is like we know what what's his fucking name? Who's the
Vladimir Putin?
No, what was the Nazi doctor?
Oh God.
Stiglitz?
What is his name?
Why am I?
We all know who we're talking about.
Mengele.
Mengele, right. So we know the crazy shit that Mengele did that was factually accurate. And we know the like insane horrors that were happening at that time. So you swap out a couple details, you go, actually, like you think what Mengele was doing was fucking crazy. You should hear about what the Russians were doing. This like notoriously isolationist area that's communist. So we don't know what the fuck they're doing over there, right? and we know they're communists, so they'll do fucking anything, dude. They
Yeah.
don't give a shit, right? And so we throw in a couple of those details. We know that the meth gas was a thing, or not meth gas, but we know that meth is a thing. We know that the gas is a thing. And so it takes all these little details, throws them into a fucking pot, and goes like, check this fucking story out. I promise
Right.
it's true, right?
Pull
And
it
then
out
you
of the
get this
hopper.
thing that people go, I don't think it's true, but kind of sounds like it could be true.
Well, isn't
And then there's like cousins of it everywhere, you know?
it's the best it's the best way to tell a creepy story, like base some of it in fact and then have some twist. It's a little bit like how, you know, like the Epstein of it all, like made all other conspiracy theories true in a way, because
100%.
there was so much crazy shit that was true about the Epstein
Yeah.
world. And then you're like, well, if that's true,
Totally.
it's all true.
Yeah.
It's like it's diabolical, and it's smart to base your foundation in something that actually happened.
And if you look at the page on the Creepypasta subreddit and look at kind of the comments that, let me share my screen just to get an idea of like what people think about this particular one. The top comment is, I remember reading this for the first time when I was probably about 12 and I thought it was real and I didn't sleep well for like a week. Good times. So this, I feel like you take these like kind of things that probably could happen in could have happened in history and did happen in history, or like a version of it. And then you add all these like ridiculous extra details, but like that's what makes these like shareable to a preteen, to a teenager. Like when you're kind of new to the internet and you read this, like nowadays, I was reading this the other day and I was just like, the number of details when we know like how few details made it out of any fucked up experiment, like even from what we found of like the Nazi Mengele experiments, like we still have info, but we don't know what the fuck people said. We don't know, you know, what time they let, like none of those like details exist anymore. So that part took me out of it, but it was still nasty.
That almost feels like that could also be the magic, though, is because what that does is it adds details that are unnecessary that you go, oh, this is obviously a fictionalized version of this, but like all the other details, though, are those true? And then you don't really, your mind goes like, you kind of separate the like cream from the milk, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just kind of go, oh shit, like this stuff, I know this stuff's gratuitous, but all the rest of this stuff, though, that's fucking real. You know what I mean? Here's an interesting question from Crushed Pineapple, by the way. Is the Bible a creepypasta? Fucking good question, actually.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes.
Kind of. I mean, honestly, it's like it becomes a thing where you kind of go, like, it does sit in that world of fact or fiction. Does it matter? I mean, Revelations, the book of Revelations is 100% creepypasta because it's fucking horrifying. But I think it was like originally Paul's dream anyway, so it's not really like a real thing, but it's still.
And Ambien dreams are creepypasta. Paul took an Ambien that night.
What were you gonna say, Freed? Sorry, I cut you
off.
I
was gonna say, you know, like people used to journal quite a bit. Journaling. Every time I hear someone like pop, you know, this always pops up in Congress, like some politicians like, I looked in my journal and it said this was what I said on the phone call, and you're like, you know. So I would imagine these doctors are journaling every night. You know, in creepypasta land, and they're writing down like maybe what they said and what time it is. So like theoretically, you could like build the timeline because of the journals, and fuck those guys for keeping such good journals too. Because I'm always like, God, these guys journal like on point, and I never do, but I probably should. Yeah, screw them, you know. They're journaling a lot.
They're journaling a lot when they're on the clock.
I'm always impressed. Yeah.
This is a really interesting. I think this is a really interesting one because it just gives you a fascinating middle ground of like the world of creepypastas and knowing that this is an old one, understanding the context by which it exists, right? Like it does inform all these different pieces and you know, again, like the other thing too, I mean, like we kind of casually briefly mentioned the kind of Israel-Palestine thing that's happening right now, which is a colossal issue that is erupting as we speak. I know we're recording this on a Wednesday morning, and you know, it's just completely going out of control, as you know, which is not new, but particularly if you listen to a couple episodes ago, we had like some weird Middle Eastern flare up in our chat for some inexplicable reason.
They didn't cover it on the Today Show this morning, so I don't know about it.
But you know, this is also just a story of war crimes, right?
Yeah.
Which is not, again, it is not crazy. It's not imaginary. War crimes happen every day. And I think as a kid, you look at this and you go, oh, that's crazy. What a thing. And then as an adult, you go, oh, yeah, war crimes are happening. This sounds totally realistic. It doesn't even scare me. I'm not surprised. We hear about Uyghurs in China literally every day, right? So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting way that we perceive fear. And like there is like, if I would have read this as it, not knowing that this was a creepypasta, and you cut out all those like kind of fluffy details about the time and the dialogue and whatever, and I was just an adult reading it, I'd be like, yeah, makes sense. Sounds like a Mangala thing, right?
I'd buy that.
Yeah. And you know what?
And I wouldn't have even reacted with fear. I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that happens. It reminds me of the term, the banality of evil, and how when we're kids, it's like creepy pasta. We read this stuff and it is just, it's like turned up to 11. Like the details are gory. Like it is just like the most disturbing. And then when you like grow up and you learn about like, okay, we don't know all the nitty gritty details, but we do know that like they're state-sponsored experiments keeping people awake for days, and how absolutely
waterboarding
like
is something that's actively being done, right?
And it's like, yeah, and all of that stuff is just the result of bureaucrats obeying orders, and like it's not like some evil monstrous like commander in charge. It's like this stuff really happens.
There's a new podcast called The Line. It's about the Navy SEAL guy, Eddie Gallagher. I don't know if you guys have heard that. Remember that story last year? And like his Navy SEAL team like turned on him and said he was just like murdering people in the Middle East. It was
yes.
You remember? Yeah. So there's a new podcast. Apple put it out. It's very good. I definitely recommend it. It's like, it gives you very good insight into like special operations, and like it's just like a crazy thing that these guys do, and like mentally the stress, but there's so many stories. They're so like casual and matter of fact about killing people, and they're trained to do that. So like it doesn't, the context that you cannot relate as like a human here in America. You're like, what? And like I was thinking about this morning, and even when we were talking about this, I was like, what would scare me? Like these people are literally just busting into people's homes, like that are just like any of us, just having like a regular night, and they're like coming in with all this gear on, and they're like taking them out and killing them. You're like, like that could dude. That's what's happening. That's a lot of people's reality in the world. For whatever the reason is, like they're doing it like on behalf of America. You're like, Jesus Christ, like that's real. That's pretty terrifying. Like if somebody like busted in our house in the middle of the night and started like shooting and tying me up and waterboarding me, that's what I'm afraid of, I think. And,
I mean, well, and again, that gets to
Gavin
this weird
Newsom.
thing.
He's basically doing it. Recall Gavin, right?
I mean, is there really any difference, honestly, between the Russian sleep experiment and being forced to wear a mask? Like, come on. Like, is there really any difference
whatsoever?
It's exactly.
I too feel like ripping my internal organs out every single time I have to put on one of those masks.
It's literally I like when people say it's literally the same thing. You're like, no, it's exactly the opposite of the same thing.
Yeah,
but thanks for using literally.
But yeah, I mean, it is. Yeah, I mean, this is the big questions here that I keep coming to is like, what do I fear in a real way that I could read something and it would fucking destroy me? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting. Good song recommendation. I love the French.
For me, it's all about
thread right now. By the way, Boom King and Spakaman just greeting each other like buddies. I love it.
I love that.
Pineapple. Thanks for the recommendation. I always need more.
So I know we're starting to get a little low on time, so I want to get 2 more creepypastas in if we can. I want to read Squidward's Lost Episode and Sonic EXE. And by the way, we are, like I said, we're going to probably revisit this more than once because just creepypastas happen, creepy things happen. I feel like this is just part of the world of conspiracy subs and whatnot. But anyway, Freed, before we do that though,
did
I cut you off?
No. I was Crushed Pineapple's got a sick recommendation for a song about war. So thanks, shout out. But also, I was gonna say, the audio podcast for all you livers, I think we'll probably mix up the dog poop stories with some like spooky music and maybe some shrieks.
Oh, I
So
love that.
expect.
I love you're like, yeah. Dad will probably do that.
Yeah, Dad. We haven't asked him to do this, but
right, Dad?
you know, it would be really cool if
I'll
we get
do
some
it.
shrieks in there and some spooky, like some drips, like drip, drip, and some eeks.
Drip, drip.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Gas noise.
Is somebody just peeing in the corner? No, that's a drip.
Right.
That's a drip.
the
It's
drip.
a creepy drip.
It's the drip.
I might put in a little bit of music, but I don't know about the other stuff. I might
No.
score it first.
I have an old rusty bucket I've been saving for the drip.
Perfect.
Nice.
You're gonna sell on sellstuff.com or whatever it is that you're selling your baby Bjorn to.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
audiomarket.com. Anybody sidebar, anybody want to buy this baby Bjorn? Hot deal. Brand
I mean,
new
look at
box,
that
never been
thing.
used. Never been used.
It's a good baby Bjorn. Comes with baby.
It
All right.
is.
Anyway, all right. So why don't I will read I'm gonna get into Squidward's lost episode.
Yes.
And then we'll read the scariest of them all, Sonic.exe, which inherently is interesting because that's just like the idea of a creepypasta being based on a program that you have to download and use. Like it'd be now if it was like, ooh, this crazy creepypasta called TrumpPtapes.pkg. Be like, you mean I gotta open it? And
like, oh my God. Yeah. I have to fucking do that. Yeah.
All right. Anyway. Okay, so let's see, I'm gonna pull up. So this is actually from Know Your Meme.
We have a lot of scary Russian stories. Do Russians have a lot of scary American stories?
Probably.
Oh, definitely.
Well, but I think that the lore of Russia though is like, I feel like Russia just it's the same thing we do with China now. It's like, and same thing we do with the Nazi Germany. We're like, because we know so little, and North Korea for that matter, we know so little, it just allows for us to imagine, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, so this was Squidward's lost episode, also known as the Red Mist or Squidward's suicide, right? Little fucking spoiler, but that's what it's called. So so this is the original creepypasta, I believe. A bit long, but we're gonna get to it. And this is from Know Your Meme, so I'm not gonna read much of the Know Your Meme. I just want to kind of get to the creepypasta itself, and then maybe we can discuss a little bit before we hit Sonic.
Know Your Meme,
okay.
Cabal Buddy.
Cabal Buddy, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Since I work directly, this is from me, by the way. This is my personal journal entry. So I don't know if if you have any questions about my experience working on SpongeBob, let me know. I have
so cool.
Journals.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So since I worked directly with the editors and animators, I got to view the new episodes days before they aired. And by the way, this was originally posted on 7chan, I believe, on r/paranormal.
Oh, so wow.
This is the other interesting thing. Because we think about the world of QAnon as it starts on an anonymous thread and you have no idea where it comes from. You don't know the person. You just take it at face value. So this is posted on 7chan. And then you kind of go, I don't know. I just saw it posted. It might be true. It sounds true to me, right? Which is the complicated part. So since I work directly with the editors and animators, I got to view the new episodes days before they aired. I'll get right to it without giving too many unnecessary details before we read many paragraphs going into this. They had very recently made the SpongeBob movie and the entire staff was somewhat sapped of creativity, so it took them longer to start up the season. But the delay lasted longer for more upsetting reasons. There was a problem with the Series 4 premiere that set everyone and everything back for several months. Me and the two other interns were in the editing room along with the lead animator and sound editors for the final cut. We received the copy that was supposed to be Fear of a Krabby Patty and gathered around the screen to watch. Now, given that it isn't final yet, animators often put up mock title card, sort of an inside joke for us, with phony, oftentimes lewd titles such as "How Sex Doesn't Work" instead of "Rockabye Bivalve." When SpongeBob and Patrick adopt a sea scallop, nothing particularly funny, but work-related chuckles. So when we saw the title card, Squidward's Suicide, we didn't think it was more than a morbid joke. One of the interns did a small throat laugh at it. The happy-go-lucky music plays as is normal. The story began with Squidward practicing his clarinet, hitting a few sour notes like normal. We hear SpongeBob laughing outside, and Squidward stops, yelling at him to keep it down as he has a concert that night and needs to practice. SpongeBob says okay and goes to see Sandy with Patrick. The Bubbles splash screen comes up, and we see the ending of Squidward's concert. This is when things begin to seem off. While playing, a few frames repeat themselves, but the sound doesn't. At this point, sound is synced up with animation, so yes, that's not common. But when he starts playing, or I'm sorry, when he stops playing, the sound finishes as if the skip never happened. There's a slight murmuring in the crowd before they begin to boo him. Not normal cartoon booing that is common for the show, but you could very clearly hear malice in it, right? So not playful booing, but like, actually, we hate you, Squidward booing. Squidward's in full frame and looks visibly afraid. The shot goes to a crowd and SpongeBob in center frame. And he too is booing, very much unlike him, right? That isn't the oddest thing, though. What is odd is everyone had hyper realistic eyes, very detailed. Clearly not shots of real people's eyes, but something a bit more real than CGI. The pupils were red. Some of us looked at each other, obviously confused, but since we weren't the writers, we didn't question its appeal to children yet. The shot goes to Squidward sitting in the edge of his bed, looking very forlorn. The view out of his porthole window is of a night sky, so it isn't very long after the concert. The unsettling part is at this point there is no sound, literally no sound, not even the feedback from the speakers in the room. It's as if the speakers were turned off, that their status showed them working perfectly. He just sat there blinking in this silence for about 30 seconds, which is a long time for silence. Then he started to sob softly, put his hands, tentacles over his eyes, and cried quietly for a full minute more. All the while, a sound in the background very slowly growing from nothing to barely audible. It sounded like a light breeze through a forest. The screen slowly begins to zoom in on his face. By slow, I mean it's only noticeable if you look at the shot 10 seconds apart, side by side. His sobbing gets louder, more full of hurt and anger. The screen then twitches a bit as if it twists in on itself for a split second, then back to normal. The wind through the trees sound gets slowly louder and more severe, as if a storm is brewing somewhere. The eerie part is this sound in Squidward's sobbing sounded real, as if the sound wasn't coming from the speakers, but as if the speakers were holes the sound was coming through from the other side. As good a sound as the studio likes to have, they don't purchase the equipment to be good to produce sound of that quality. Below the sound of the wind and sobbing, very faint, something sounded like laughing. It came at odd intervals and never lasted more than a second, so you had a hard time pinning it. We watched the show twice, so pardon me if things sound too specific, but I've had time to think about them. After 30 seconds of this, the screen blurred and twitched violently, and something flashed over the screen as if a single frame was replaced. The lead animation editor paused and rewound frame by frame. Then what we saw was horrible. It was a still photo of a dead child. He couldn't have been more than 6. The face was mangled and bloodied, one eye dangling over his upturned face popped. He was naked down to his underwear, his stomach crudely cut open, and his entrails laying beside him. He was laying on some pavement that was probably a road. The most upsetting part was that there was a shadow of the photographer. This was no crime tape, no evidence tags or marker, and the angle was completely off for a shot designed to be evidence. It would seem the photographer was the person responsible for the child's death. We were, of course, mortified, but pressed on, hoping it was just a sick joke. The screen flipped back to Squidward, still sobbing, louder than before and half body in frame. There was now what appeared to be blood running down his face from his eyes. The blood was also done in a hyper-realistic style, looking as if you touched it, you'd get blood on your fingers. The wind sounded now as if it were that of a gale blowing through the forest. There were even snapping sounds of branches. The laughing, a deep baritone, lasted at longer intervals and coming more frequently. After about 20 seconds, the screen again twisted and showed a single frame photo. The editor was reluctant to go back. We all were, but we knew we had to. This time, the photo was that of what appeared to be a little girl, no older than the first child. She was laying on her stomach, her berets in a pool of blood next to her. Her left eye was too popped out and popped naked except for her underpants. Her entrails were piled on top of her above another crude cut along her back. Again, the body the body was on the street and the photographer's shadow was visible, very similar to the size and shape of the first. I had to choke back a vomit. One in turn, the only female in the room, ran out. The show resumed.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. After about 5 seconds, I'm sorry, about 5 seconds after the second photo played, Squidward went silent, as did all sound, like it was when the scene started. He put his tentacles down, and his eyes were now done in hyperrealism like the others at the beginning of the episode. They were bleeding, bloodshot, and pulsating. He just stared at the screen as if watching the viewer. After about 10 seconds, he started sobbing, this time not covering his eyes. The sound was piercing and loud, and most fear-inducing of all is his sobbing was mixed with screams. Tears and blood were dripping down his face at a heavy rate. The wind sound came back, and so did the deep voice laughing. And this time, the still photo lasted for a good 5 frames. The animator was able to stop it on the fourth and backed up. This time it was of a boy about the same age, and this time the scene was different. The entrails were just being pulled out from a stomach wound by a large hand, the right eye popped and dangling, blood trickling down it. The animator proceeded. It was hard to believe, but the next one was different, but couldn't tell what. He went on to the next, same thing. He went back to the first and played them quicker and lost it. I vomited on the floor. The animating sound editor gasped on the screen. The 5 frames were not as if they were 5 different photos. They were played as if they were frames from a video. We saw the hand slowly lift out the guts. We saw the kid's eyes focus on it. We even saw 2 frames of the kid beginning to blink. The lead sound editor told us to stop. He had to call in the creator to see this. Mr. Hillenberg arrived within 15 minutes. He was confused as to what he was calling down there, or why he was being called down there. So the editor just continued the episode. Once the few frames were shown, all screaming, all sound again stopped. Squidward was just staring at the viewer, full frame on his face for about 3 seconds. The shot quickly panned out, and the deep voice said, "Do it." And we see in Squidward's hands a shotgun. He immediately pulls the gun in his mouth, pulls the trigger. Realistic blood and brain splatters the wall behind him and his bed, and he flies back with the force. The last 5 seconds of the episode show the body on the bed on his side, one eye dangling on what's left of his head above the floor, staring blankly at it. Then the episode ends. Mr. Hillenberg is obviously angry at this. He demanded to know what the hell was going on. Most people left the room at this point, so it was just a handful of us to watch it again. Viewing the episode twice only served to imprint the entirety of it in my mind, and caused me horrible nightmares. I'm sorry I stayed. The only theory we could think of was the file was edited by someone in the chain from a drawing studio to here. The CTO was called in to analyze what happened. The analysis of the file did show it was edited over by new material. However, the timestamp of it was a mere 24 seconds before we began viewing it. All equipment involved was examined for foreign software and hardware, as well as glitches, as if the timestamp may have glitched and showed the wrong time, but everything checked out fine. We don't know what happened, and to this day, nobody does. There was an investigation due to the nature of the photos, but nothing came of it. No child scene was identified, and no clues were gathered from the data involved, nor physical clues in the photos. I never believed in inexplainable phenomena before, but now that I have something happen, and I can't prove anything about it beyond anecdotal evidence, I think twice about things. Why is there a quote there? In most YouTube videos on the subject. Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's the whole story. And then the end as a note from Know Your Meme. In the most YouTube videos on the subject, this is the account used. It is allegedly the true and original account of the episode, although it has not yet been proven. Needless to say, it will most likely change the entire outlook of SpongeBob SquarePants.
Wow.
Crazy. That one's pretty heavy duty, actually.
That one is gory.
That one is gory. And so it's interesting because, again, going back to this, you kind of go like the first one, they added all these superfluous details, right? And then this one, because it's digitally native, it feels more relatable and it feels closer to the things that we know happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that one is like kind of like that one. You kind of, even as I'm reading it and I finished watching, I'm kind of like the first one. I'm like, there's 95% this is not true. This one's like 68% not true.
Right.
You know?
Like, I wonder if some weird fucking prank was made. Like, I don't know. That one's really creepy.
This also feels a little bit like it shares a bit of the like the Epstein math, right? Where
Yeah.
you're just like, there's videos and tapes somewhere. We think they're on the island, but they got destroyed. We hear that there's one person somewhere who has it left. We need to find the tape, right? Where you're kind of like, is that true?
Yeah.
Are you fucking with me, right? And so, yeah, that one's heavy duty. Freed,
Oh my
what's your
God.
take? You look left in shock and awe.
I guess I'm confused. I didn't know about this story, so I'm digesting it all.
Yeah, it's
Wait, so
interesting
can you
because it
just
definitely.
re-break it down for me, because I feel like I almost like lost part of it.
Well, so the
It like
idea
cuts
is.
away to just can you re-explain it? Because
So I guess, and this is also part of another, and I know we're starting to get low on time. Do we have a couple? We're all good on time for maybe like 10 more minutes. Is that
Yeah.
possible?
yes, yeah.
Maybe
10
Okay.
minutes.
So,
I'm good.
cool. So I think that this one is, so the idea here, and again, what I think is interesting about this is there are plenty of videos online of things that you just go, that was fucking crazy. What the hell is that from? Everybody remembers rotten.com, right? And like places like that were like really, like, there are a lot of very, very horrifying, truly traumatizing videos, right? There's like the
Yeah.
video of like the politician who shot himself in the head on live TV, right? Like things like that you're just like,
Mhm.
this actually is real, right?
Right.
And so the proposition here is that this intern that was working on SpongeBob, and SpongeBob, of course, is a beloved cartoon of this digital generation. He was an intern. He was viewing an early episode, and they were watching this episode, and they were like, "This one is weird." Like in them mentioning that there are a couple like clips and shit that are in the episode. They're like this always happens, like this is like a thing, that like, we put a fake title in there sometimes as like a joke, right? So they're like kind of introducing that thing, and then as they're watching it, they're like, damn, this is increasingly sinister. And then it goes from like, this is an animator making a dark episode, to like they're putting episodes in of dead kids, or I'm sorry, putting little frames of dead
clips. Yeah.
kids as a like, this is no longer just a joke. This is like a really dark, twisted thing.
And it's not
And
just
then,
crime scene footage.
yeah, it's not just crime scene footage. It looks like maybe this is a perpetrator too.
It's like a
And
snuff
then,
film built
yeah,
into
snuff film shit. And then
built
the
into
episode
cut.
ends with Squidward killing himself in like a gory, like it kind of goes like it teeters between like weird art film and like weird art film and snuff film, and all of a sudden it's like, who did this? And then they bring in the creator, and the creator's like, what the fuck are you guys showing me? What is going on? And so they do this whole investigation, and they're like, did somebody get our footage and fuck with it? What the hell happened? And they kind of end with being like, nobody knows how this happened, but it happened. I saw it twice, and that's the Squidward's lost episode. That's a lost episode
So-
of SpongeBob that no one will ever see,
So yeah, I mean, and there's no explanation, because in reality, yes, right? Like somebody could cut in
Right.
frame of some crazy shit, dicks,
Right.
kids,
Dicks,
getting
for
murdered.
instance. Yeah, you saw it happen on
That happened in Fight Club, right?
yeah,
Dicks.
it's on City Hall. You saw fucking
I
dicks
saw it
show up on
live.
City
Oh
Hall.
yeah, you saw it live.
On a Zoom, yeah. So we know it's real.
It happens.
And so this is just a story of a guy saying, "This is what happened. I saw it, but you can't ever go see it because it doesn't exist
Right.
anymore." I guess I'm skeptical about that. But
I hear
I
you.
mean, this is interesting too, because
it's good
this is like,
good pub.
I mean, there's a funny there's like an interesting bit with this one too, where it doesn't quite ever, like, you can't really prove it wrong, because this is where you kind of get into the world of weird conspiracies now, right? Where you kind of go like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, of course you're gonna say that never happened, because you could get in trouble, right?
Totally.
But
So
like,
wait.
it's
So-
really interesting, because even on Creepypasta Files, the fandom, like at the very end, it has facts listed.
Yeah.
And the facts listed are like, there was apparently certain images within the episode during the section of Squidward's crying that involved child torture and murder. However, the images were pasted due to the short duration between the images and the frames of the scene. So you're just like,
Whoa.
you said facts, but what?
And
So
then
yeah.
that's crazy.
Same. So wait, so somebody theoretically an editor or somebody on the show who's got a basement full of kids they're torturing is filming this stuff and then has cut it into the show, right?
Right.
And then those episodes that was discovered and it was removed and it's been thrown away.
Right.
So which we can't prove. But I guess it's creepy, and we all know there's a cabal of people torturing kids, so that's
Exactly.
True.
Exactly. Could have been Bill Gates and Melinda Foundation.
It could have been the Melinda Foundation, right? This
Never
is
know.
really
Hollywood
interesting.
eating babies, that is a thing.
Exactly.
It
And then going back to the original iceberg meme that we looked at for Creepypastas, this was in that mid tier, which is also interesting because you kind of have like Slenderman. You're just like, oh, that's cute. And then you kind of like, it gets increasingly darker because down to like the Dalmatov Pass or whatever the fuck that is, it's like, that one is like a real thing that people talk about, right? And it's like the like Donner Party type shit where you go, oh no, there was actually cannibals that killed themselves and ate each other, right? And so it feels like the further down in the iceberg you get, the less confident you are that it didn't happen. You know what I mean?
That's a great way to look at it.
So
it's like the mystery and the creepiness involved in it is harder to pinpoint as bullshit the more you go down.
I know. All right, so let's palate cleanse ourselves with one more.
Cleanse ourselves, you guys.
Just to finish ourselves, if we can. I know we have to somewhat speed read this one.
Yes.
But let's do Sonic EXE.
All right.
Are we capable of doing Sonic EXE and with the time we have left?
So here's the thing. If we do Sonic EXE live right now, we might want to do an abbreviated version.
Cool.
Or I can record it separately.
So why don't we do an abbreviated version really quickly to satisfy the live, and then we'll do a recording to do Sonic EXE of the full thing because I know we're running out of time.
The drips.
With the
with all that amazing production work.
It's going to be a whole weekend of me trying to do fucking sound editing.
This is bullshit.
To do this.
I have a bunch of celery we can crack for like bones and stuff.
Yeah.
Put up a whole Foley studio.
Oh, I love that.
All right.
Okay.
So
you guys
let's
ready
go
for
really quick. Like what was the deal with Sonic EXE?
Okay, Sonic EXE is actually really interesting. And this might be a teaser into the next episode of Creepypasta we do, because it also spawned the Cult of X, which is basically like an entire Sonic the Hedgehog, like Creepypasta universe. Like there's so much related to this that is very freaking hilarious. I mean, scary. I mean, creepy.
Yeah. Oh no, this is very scary stuff. Very scary. Much scarier than the Squidward's Lost episode.
Oh yeah, way scarier. So I hope you guys are holding onto your butts because here it goes.
Always.
All right, here we go, guys. Let's just look at this image real quick.
Put your hand on your butt.
This is what we're gonna get into, okay?
Well, Sega 666. Yikes.
All right.
La, la.
Drip, y'all. I'm a total Sonic the Hedgehog fan, much like everyone else. I like the newer games, but I don't mind playing the classics. I don't think I've ever played glitchy or hacked games before, though. I don't think I want to play any after the experience I had. It started out on a nice summer afternoon. I was playing Sonic Unleashed. I like how you get to explore the towns in it. Until I noticed, out of my peripheral vision, that the mailman had arrived and put something in my mailbox as usual and left. I paused my game to go see what I got in the mail. The only thing in the mailbox was a CD case for computers and a note. I took it inside. I looked at the note first and realized it was from my dear friend Kyle. Let's just call him that, whom I hadn't heard from in 2 weeks. I know that because I recognized his handwriting, though what was weird is how it looked. It looked badly written and scratchy and somewhat difficult to read, as if Kyle was having a hard time writing it down and did it in a hurry. This is what he wrote. Tom, I can't take it anymore. I had to get rid of this thing somehow before it was too late, and I was hoping you'd do it for me. I can't do it. He's after me, and if you can't destroy this CD, he'll come after you too. He's too fast for me. Please, Tom, destroy this godforsaken disc before he comes after you too. It's too late for me. Destroy the disc and you'll destroy him, but do it quick, otherwise he'll catch you. Don't even play the game. It's what he wants. Just destroy it, please. ... Kyle. Well, that was certainly weird. Even though Kyle is my best friend and I haven't seen him in 2 weeks, I didn't do what he asked me. I didn't think that a simple gaming disc would do anything bad to him. After all, it's just a game, right? Boy, was I wrong about that. Anyway, I looked at the disc and it looks like any other ordinary computer CDR disc, except it had black marker on it written sonic.exe. And it was much unlike Kyle's handwriting, meaning that he must have gotten it from someone else, like a pawn shop or eBay. When I saw Sonic on the writing, I was actually excited and wanted to play it since I'm a big Sonic fan. I went up to my room and turned on my computer and put the disc in and installed the game. When the title screen popped up, I noticed it was the first Sonic game. I was like, awesome! Because like I said earlier, I like the classics. The first thing I noticed was out of place when I pressed start. There's a split second when I saw the title image turned into something much different, something that I now consider horrifying before cutting to black. I remember what the image looked like in that split second before the game cut to black. The sky had darkened. The title emblem was rusted and ruined. The Sega 1991 was now Sega 666, and the water had turned red, like blood, except it looked hyper-realistic. But the freakiest thing was that in that split-second frame was Sonic. His eyes were pitch black and bleeding. Sound familiar? With 2 glowing red dots staring right at me. His smile had stretched wider up to the edge of his face. I was rather disturbed about that image when I saw it, though I figured it was just a glitch and forgot about it. After it cut back to black, it stayed like that for about 10 seconds or so, and then another weird thing happened. The save file select from Sonic the Hedgehog 3 popped up. And I was like, WTF, what's that doing in the first Sonic game? Anyway, then I noticed something off. The background was a dark, cloudy sky of the Bad Stardust Speedway level from Sonic CD. And there were only 3 save files. You guys following along, Sonic fans out there?
Oh, yeah.
The music was that creepy Caverns of Winter music from Earthbound, only it was extended and seemed to have been in reverse. And the image for the save file where you see a preview of the level you're on was just red static for all 3 files. What freaked me out more was the character select. It showed only Tails, Knuckles, and to my surprise, Dr. Robotnik. Now, I was sure something was up. I mean, how can you play as Robotnik in a classic Sonic game, for crying out loud?
Scariest part so far.
So far, I am literally shaking in my boots. Then I realized it wasn't a glitchy game. It was a hacked game. Yeah, it definitely looked hacked. It was really creepy. But as a smart gamer, I wasn't scared, or at least I tried not to be. I told myself it was just a hacked game, and there's nothing wrong with that. Anyways, shaking off the creeped out feeling, I picked file 1 and chose Tails, and I selected and got started. The game froze for about 5 seconds, and I heard a creepy pixelated laugh that sounded an awful lot like that Kefka guide from Final Fantasy before cutting to black. The screen stayed black for about 10 seconds more. Then it showed that typical level title thing, except the simplistic shapes were different shades of red, and the text only showed Hill, Act 1. The screen faded in, and the level title vanished, revealing Tails in the Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1. The music was different, though. It sounded like a peaceful melody in reverse. Anyway, I started playing and had Tails start running like you would in any of the classic Sonic games. What was odd was that as Tails was running along the level, there was nothing but flat ground and a few trees for 5 minutes!
What?
The way
5 whole minutes.
Time works in Creepypasta is amazing.
It's so funny.
So 5 minutes, like running, you know how at the end of a Sonic game, like running to the boss, like the Robotnik boss moment already takes maybe like 8 seconds and it's like the longest fucking thing in the world? Well, 5 minutes of this goes on. And that peaceful reverse music started to slow down, to slow deep tones very slowly as I kept going. Suddenly I saw something and I stopped to see what it was. It was one of the small animals lying dead on the ground bleeding. That was when the music started to slow down. Tails had a shocked and saddened look on his face that I'd never seen him have before. So I had him move along, and he kept that worried look on his face. As he kept moving, I saw more dead animals as Tails moved past them, looking more and more worried as the music lowers and he moves past more dead animals. I was shocked to see how they all died. They looked like someone had killed them in rather gruesome ways. A squirrel was hanged on a tree with what appeared to be his entrails hanging out. A bunny had all 4 of his limbs torn off, and a duck had his eyes gouged out and his throat slit. I felt sick.
Theme.
Yeah, this happens.
Eyes gouging.
Yeah, and like entrails involved.
Right.
I felt sick to my stomach when I saw this massacre, and apparently so did Tails. After a few more seconds, there were no more animals, and the music seems to have stopped. I still kept Tails to continue. After another minute passed, after the music stops, Tails was running up a hill, and then he stopped. It wasn't until I saw why. Sonic was there on the other side of the screen with his back against Tails and his eyes closed. Tails looked happy to see Sonic, but then his smile faltered. We all know what like the graphics in Sonic look like, and these facial expressions this person's describing are impossible. He looked happy to see that his smile faltered, obviously noticing that Sonic wasn't responding to him, if not acting as if he was totally oblivious to Tails' presence. Tails walked slowly towards Sonic, and I noticed that I wasn't even moving my keyboard to make him move, so this had to have been a cutscene. Suddenly, I began to have a growing feeling of dread as Tails walked closer to Sonic to get his attention. I felt that Tails was in danger and something bad was going to happen. I heard faint static growing louder as Tails was but inches away from Sonic and stopped and stuck his hand out to touch him. That foreboding feeling in my gut was growing stronger, and I felt the urge to tell Tails to get away from Sonic as the static grew louder. Suddenly, in a split second, I saw Sonic's eyes open, and they were black with those red glowing dots, just like the title image, though there wasn't a smile. When that happened, the screen turned black and the static sound was off. It stayed like that for about 7 seconds. I hope someone's doing the math. And then white text appeared, forming a message saying, "Hello. Do you want to play with me?" At this point, I was creeped out, but I didn't want to continue with the game, but my curiosity got the better of me when I was taken to a different level with a level title now saying Hide and Seek. This time I was in the Angel Island level from Sonic 3, and it looked like everything was on fire. Tails looked as though he was scared out of his wits this time. He actually looked at me and made frantic gestures to me as if he wanted to get the fuck out of this area as fast as possible. I was starting to get freaked out by this. I mean, Tails was actually breaking the fourth wall, trying to tell me to get him out of there. So I pressed down on the arrow key as hard as I could to make him run as fast as he could. A pixelated version of that creepy theme song when you meet Shadow at the Ark as Robotnik from Sonic 2 was playing as I made Tails trek through the desolate forest, trying to help him escape from whatever he was trying to run from. Suddenly heard that creepy laugh again, that awful Kefka laugh. Right after 10 seconds had passed as I helped Tails run through the forest, and then I started to see flashes of Sonic popping everywhere on the screen again with those black and red eyes. The music changed to that suspenseful drowning jingle as I see Sonic behind Tails, slowly gaining up on him, flying. Sonic wasn't running, he was flying. The flying pose his sprite was making looked very similar to Metal Sonic's flying pose in Sonic CD, except it was just Sonic, and he had the black and red eyes again. Only this time, he had the most deranged-looking grin on his face. He looked as if he was enjoying the torment he was giving the poor little fox as he gained on him. Suddenly, when Tails tripped, another cutscene, the music stopped and Sonic vanished. Tails laid there and started crying for 15 exact seconds. The scene was rather upsetting to watch, and I kind of teared up myself. But then Sonic appeared right in front of Tails, and Tails looked up in horror. Blood started to come down those blackened eyes of Sonic's as a grin slowly grew from his face as he looked down at the horrified fox. I could do nothing but watch. Just in a split second, Sonic lunged at Tails right before the screen went black. There was a loud screeching noise that only lasted 5 exact seconds. The text
keep the time right now.
keep the time. The text returned, only this time it said, "You're too slow. Want to try again?" And then that god-awful laugh came with it. I was so shocked by what happened. Did Sonic murder Tails? No, he couldn't have. He and Tails are supposed to be best friends, right? Why did Sonic do that to him? I shook the shock off as I was brought back to the character select. Save file that had Tails was different. Tails was no longer in the box itself, but in the TV screen itself, which was flickering with the red static. Tails' expression scared me. His eyes were black and bleeding. His orange fur had gone black, and he had an expression of anguish on his face. Trying to ignore it, I picked Knuckles next. So this happens a couple more times, you guys. There's some amazing things.
This is a very long story. I did not realize how long this was.
It's a long one. So there's like, he picks a couple more different things. Then he picks Dr. Robotnik. So let's say, let's start again right here. Suddenly, Sonic popped up right in front of Robotnik the same way he did with Knuckles, Tails, and then the red static again. It lasted about 15 seconds.
Exactly.
And then it showed me the most unpleasant image. The image showed a hyper-realistic of Sonic standing in the darkness where you can only see his face while his head and torso faded into black. And when I say hyper-realistic,
fully nude, right?
Fully nude.
Huge erect.
Cock and balls dangling. Yeah. I mean, he looked so real. You could actually see the lines in his blue fur, as if you could actually feel the fur if you touched your screen. His face, oh God, he had the most horrifying smile I'd ever seen. And that's saying something, considering I saw the image at the start of the game. His eyes were wide and black, once again crying blood. And there were two small glowing red dots in the middle of those black eyes staring right at me, as if staring into my mind. His grin was wide and demonic. It literally stretched to the sides of his face like a Cheshire cat, except Sonic had fangs, very sharp fangs, much like a werehog's teeth, except more vicious looking. Somewhat yellow, and from the look of it, he had stains of blood and small bits of flesh on his lips and fangs as if he ate some animal. Pixelated, of course.
Right.
I stared at that gruesome image for a good 30 seconds. Never taking my eyes off it. I felt as if he was actually looking at me, smiling at me. That face, it just took 10 seconds for it to etch itself into my brain for good. Then the screen flickered with red static again 3 times, and on the 3rd time I heard the Kefka laugh, except this time it sounded distorted, demonic even. It went back to the image again, except this time there was text again, though it was messed up, but it was pretty much one of the most horrifying things I looked at since I had this game. I am God. It was when I read that message while looking at Sonic when it hit me. I realized right then and there. This Sonic was a monster. A pure evil, sadistic, all-powerful, nightmarish, demented monster. And all of his victims, including Tails, Knuckles, Robotnik, and possibly Kyle, are just his little toys, and the game is this very gateway into his chaotic, nightmarish world and the very hell his victims are trapped in.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, in an actual split second, half of one, I screamed as Sonic lunged at the screen, screeching loudly with his mouth wide open to an unnatural length, revealing nothing but a literal spiraling abyss of pure darkness before the red static came again, this time much louder and distorted. I yelled and grabbed my ears as the red static screeched for 7 exact seconds. Then I stopped and showed nothing.
Exact seconds.
Exact seconds. As I sat there staring at the black screen, one last text came up. Ready for round 2, Tom? The Kefka laugh, now sounding more clear, as if Sonic was right behind me, played again 3 times as I looked at that text in shock and confusion. Then I got booted back to the main menu. And this time, the 3rd save file had a TV image of Robotnik in the same tormented state as Tails and Knuckles. Robotnik's skin had turned a dull gray. His mustache drooped, and he had blackened. His glasses broke, his blood is coming out of them, and he had a mere dead-like expression on his face. I looked at Tails, Knuckles, and Robotnik, and I cried a little bit. I pitied them for the agony they were going through. They were forever trapped in the game, forever tormented by that horrid hedgehog, and always will be. Then the computer shut itself off. I couldn't turn it back on no matter what I did. I sat there for maybe 25 seconds, horrified by what had just happened. Sonic is the very embodiment of evil. He tortures people who play his game in more ways than one. And then, when he gets bored, he drags you into the game, literally drags you to hell where he can play with you always as his toy. I can't get the game out of my computer. I think it's stuck in there, but at least I managed to turn it back on now. After I sat there for 25 seconds, I heard a voice right behind me, like a whisper. Try to keep this interesting for me, Tom. I turned around to see where the voice came from, and what I saw made me scream. Sitting on my bed, staring right at me, was a Sonic plushie, smiling with bloodstains under his eyes.
Come on.
Chef's kiss. I think that's the most real of all of them. Pretty close. I mean, it's God damn. It's so fucking stupid. I mean, people love this one is like this is Stranger Things, right? Like this is like a cute, fun, playful joke. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's like Chucky meets. This also feels like a group of moms got together and they're like, our kids are playing too many video games. Let's try to like
totally
off the joystick.
Right?
Love
also,
it.
I have a similar reaction to keep this interesting. Crushed pineapple is that felt very sexy. Sonic's whole aura is evil sexy in this, and I don't like it.
Just it's Sonic sitting on his bed, fully aroused, photorealistic.
This is such a fun one because I didn't go through
Sonic.
These super long parts about playing as Knuckles and then playing as Robotnik, but there are just as many different Sonic game references. Like just like the song from Chemical Plant Act 3, but in reverse. And you're like, how would you even recognize that?
Oh, love it. All right. Well, I know that we are far past Joe Rogan time now. I think this is going to be our longest episode ever, which is great because it's Creepypastas. Can't wait to revisit Creepypastas. We have a lot still left on that iceberg, so we're going to continue getting back at these. Dog boobs, just popcorn reading fucking just world champion.
Popcorn reading champ of 5th grade.
Dude, you even do accents. I don't know how you do that. You do accents in quotes. So fucking crazy.
I don't know. Audible. If you're listening, we got a future book reader on our hands,
right? Just like Ed Kemper in prison, he read some books for audio, and he was a murderer.
Is that true?
Did he really?
He read
as like a gig.
Yeah. Ed Kemper audiobooks. There's one really well-known one that he did. He did something.
Now that's creepypasta, man. Like here's the creepy there. I listened to the book, and by the end of it, then I want to go kill someone. And the book's not even about murder. It's just like
it's literally like Winnie the Pooh book, but whatever.
Wild.
No, I'm killing.
All right. Well, this is a fun episode. I can't wait to do this again. Maybe we'll do one close to Halloween, or fucking do one in June, dude. When it's real creepy out. When the forest fires start in LA, that's when shit gets fucking scary.
So true.
All right. Well, this is Did You Reddit, a weekly podcast about the internet by way of Reddit, the front page of the internet. My name is Jeff the Killer.
I'm Spooky Boobs.
I'm my free death, dude.
Oh,
yeah.
Very, very spooky. All right. We'll be back next week with another episode. Catch you later. Actually, really quickly before we do that, thank you, Crushed Pineapple, Dr. Spakaman, the Boom King, as always. Who else joined us today?
Doxy Firebolt.
Dox Revolt, and Brennan's music. Love all y'all. Thanks for hanging out with us. See you next time. Goodbye.